Now, in this week's Purchase or Pass segment, we take a look at buying any unit in Queensland, as there's some debate about what it could cost you in the future. Now, in September this year, a bill was introduced into Parliament to amend the Body Corporate and Community Management Act of 1997, and the public comment actually closed on this today. Now, it related to how strata fees are allocated in unit blocks, and if they could be changed after being originally set up. So tonight I thought we'd discuss some of the implications. So, John, to start with, as a bit of an example, say you owned a 500 grand two-bedroom unit on the ground floor. It's got no aspect, nothing to look at all, and at the same time someone's got a $5 million one that's maybe on the 100th floor and has got massive views and the rest of it. If there's two people living in each apartment, should they pay the same effectively for using the pool or the gym?
Yes, I think they should, if they were both one bedroom or the same number of people were living in it. So if you've got a one-bedroom penthouse and a one-bedroom unit on the ground floor, obviously only one or two people can live in both of those, and so they both ought to pay the same amount of money.
So that seems a reasonable thing. If we then take another extreme, and if you're on the 100th floor and you've paid $5 million for your unit, you're going to want to see the views, assuming you can see the ocean. You want the windows washed. Obviously it's going to be pretty expensive. You've got to use the lift and the rest of it. Whereas the guy on the ground floor doesn't use the lift, doesn't have to get his windows washed, he can do it himself. Should, again, they pay the same for window washing?
No, they shouldn't.
Doesn't make sense, does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, effectively, the higher premium $5 million property part of it was to do with the view. So we can forget about the view, but what we ought to be focusing on is the real costs of maintaining that top floor unit and the ground floor unit. Obviously, it's very easy to wash your own windows when you're on the ground floor.
And so obviously with those two, there's obviously an argument both sides, as there always is in any argument, so you can see it from both perspectives. So what's physically potentially happening at the moment is, say on the ground floor your strata fees are say $5 grand a year, and on the top floor they're $50 grand a year. When you buy it off the plan, it's all set in stone, isn't it?
Yes.
So I think what the issue is now there's been potential to argue it in court. And if the top penthouse, the guy with all the cash and the expensive lawyers, can say, no, I want to pay the same, and his drops to maybe even 15 grand, his is reduced by a third, whereas the guy at 5 grand, his triples to 15 grand, it's suddenly a massive nightmare, isn't it?
Absolutely, but the only people that are really going to get hurt in this process are the actual owner-occupiers. Because the rest of us who are investors probably oughtn't to be investing in an apartment block that has got all of these facilities. So we shouldn't be straddled with it. And I'd make the point that there are dozens and dozens of apartment blocks that are small in places like Brisbane that just don't have these issues. So I don't think we should see this as don't get involved in units in Brisbane. I think we should just simply say, well, hey, this is a rational situation that's going to exist where we've got very extravagant blocks of units with all of the amenities that can possibly go there. But for my money, I think the judge needs to be very well briefed.
And certainly the financial side of this is, say you're looking at buying into a block of units, and this is tabled in the AGM minutes, it's going to scare a lot of buyers off. And if you think your fees are $5 grand, you don't know if they're going to be 5 or 15. It's pretty worrying, isn't it?
Yes, you're going to have great difficulty in selling that apartment, unfortunately.
And so, I mean, I guess maybe one of the lessons is, if you are going to get into this, then potentially buy the penthouse, because if anything, your fees are going to reduce, whereas if you buy the cheapest one, they're more likely to rise.
But Chris, we're not you.
Exactly. So I guess the final thing on Queensland units, would that be a purchase or pass? Does this change anything for you?
For me, no, because I wouldn't have been involved as an investor buying those sorts of units in the first place.
Yeah, and look, certainly for me, the laws are constantly changing. This is only being talked about now, so we're not definitely sure exactly what's happening. So for me, I'd purchase as normal until something else comes out, then I certainly wouldn't change my mind. And now it's time